welcome everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Lachelle Atkins. Lachelle Atkins, sort of like the Atkins diet.
hmm
Welcome, Lachelle. We have America's supermom with us, and man, am I honored to have you here. Thank you for giving us this honor.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be connected with you. I love our Facebook Messenger group that we have. I don't
Absolutely.
get a chance to participate a lot, because we've got so many different things that we're doing as speakers, podcasters, and things like that. But
Absolutely.
loving the energy,
I love
and the camaraderie with helping one another. So I'm honored to be here today.
Awesome. So why don't you, Lachelle, tell a little bit about yourself to everyone? Tell them about your life. Start with the beginning. Tell us where you grew up.
Okay, so I'm originally from Indiana. I currently live in Georgia, and I was raised an only child. That's like the monumental thing that surrounds a lot of my upbringing. Um, I just remember a childhood where I never wanted for anything in terms of the material items. Not that I was well to do by any means, but my mother came from humble beginnings as a daughter of 12 children. And
Wow.
so one of the things she wanted to do was to make sure that I had things that she didn't have. So it wasn't like, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth,
Hmm.
but I didn't really lack anything. If I wanted designer clothing or things like that, my mom was very creative and strategic about how to accomplish it and find it. And a lot of my rewards were driven around academic achievement.
Right.
So she would tie, okay, you do this certain thing, stay on the honor roll and do what you got to do. And you can have, whatever, a shopping spree. She really kind of tied the two together because academics was very important to her as a way to leave her humble beginnings. She was the first one out of all her siblings to graduate from college. A lot of them didn't follow on that path until they were older in life. And, it just totally opened up a whole new world for her with a college degree. So that was something that she's like, you're at least going to accomplish that. So academics was very um, familiar with that being a standard, so to speak, for me. Gauging my level of success
Right.
was, being on honor roll gifted classes. Well, fast forward to the college.
Most parents expect that of us, right? That academic
So
achievement.
true. Yeah, because that was the thing with society,
Yeah,
the American dream.
absolutely.
And fast forward, my mom went to a university, the same university she went to, I went to. The same
Wonderful.
pastor who married my mom and dad married me and my husband. So
Wow.
I was fortunate to find the love of my life. However, we started off a little non traditionally. He already had a son,
Hmm.
and we had our first daughter before we got married. So, it was that trepidation for my mom like, oh, what is this going to be, with you having a child before you're married? Is this
Right.
not going to work or whatever? And, we went ahead and took that leap anyway, got married. When we felt the time was right. We could
Hmm.
have got married as soon as I found out I was expecting because we had planned to get married anyway. But we just wanted to take that time to make sure that this
Right.
was what we wanted and everything. Well,
Well, you had to. You were about to have a child, so you had to supporting your child, and that family was probably more important than investing in a marriage at that time.
exactly, exactly. So, we took some time to find out if that's really what we felt we wanted to do. We got married, planned on having just 5 children. And we now currently today, as I am recording this video, have 15 children.
Wow.
So life took a different turn. And that turn really led me down a road of self discovery that I was not even
Oh,
anticipating.
right,
Okay.
right.
Um, I was raised with the mindset that if you want something, you work for it. There is no limit to the things that you could have if you're willing to work for it. So that's the mindset I came into the marriage with and came into the um, role of parenthood with, motherhood, whatever you want to label it. So I was just under this impression that if I worked hard enough, I could be successful in all these things that I put my hands to.
Right.
And that really was the catalyst that led to a 13-year struggle with depression. I was hospitalized 3 times. And,
Oh,
um, I just really had a lot attached to seeking validation from other people, people pleasing, running myself ragged with trying to be perfect and look the part that I thought I was supposed to look, and just a number of things. I can go on for hours
yes, of
about the
course.
things that I was
Yeah,
thinking I had control over.
right.
And it was after that last hospitalization that I really was able to turn the corner and have that time to reflect on me being the common denominator, because each of those hospitalizations, I was walking around with the victim mindset. Woe is me, this happened to me. And,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was somewhat like a badge of honor to be a victim. And after my last hospitalization, I thought, this is crazy because, I'm blaming my husband and kids and circumstances, but I'm the one that has been through this cycle three
Ordeal.
times. So I have to kind of take some ownership and accountability.
Right.
So that process led me on a journey to um, ask myself different questions. And I really dove deep, asked myself the questions that mattered, and created a strategy that helped me get out of that depression once and for all and maintain a life depression free. So that is my fresh start strategy. And it's
So
fresh as
before we go to your fresh start strategy, tell us a little bit about, okay, so you're going through this depression, and you're going through these phases in your life that lead to your depression, and then there's this turning point where you actually realize that I don't want to do this anymore. Like, talk about that turning point a little bit before we go into
yeah.
your strategy.
So, for me, being a high achiever and always feeling like I have the answers, figuring
Right.
things out, knowing how to do things. Um, my definition of depression was somebody who was in the bed all the day,
Right.
not motivated to do anything.
Right.
So the journey for me lasted so much longer because I didn't have the definition of what depression looked like for me.
Right.
So we go through this whole thing where, let's just take the word success. Somebody might think success is driving a new car. Someone
Right.
else might think it's living in a big house.
Right. It's relative.
Someone, yeah, time freedom. Well, same thing happens with depression, right? People on the outside were validating me and saying, how do you do it? Your kids, they have all their homework,
Yeah.
they get to school on time, they're never, they're always well behaved, they follow the rules. So those things were
So on the
going
outside, it didn't look like depression to anybody, but to you on the inside, it was depression, and you were depressed.
absolutely.
Got you.
So, coming from a high achiever mindset, it looks like, okay, you're going to set your goals, you know, they look like a checklist or, whatever it is that you plan to do for the day.
Hmm.
Every day was a different day. It was chaos, right? So it's like my husband may call, I'm a support to him while I'm at home because we would have home business. He'd be working or whatever.
Right.
Somebody needs a document, stop what you're doing, go do that. And so it was like I never had my own agenda, even though I had a checklist. It was like I wasn't even in control of my day. I didn't even know what was going to happen from day to day because my kids may call and forget their lunch, or, somebody has some emergency. So I'm led to do that because it's like, oh, I'm the helpmate, or I'm, showing up and helping them be the best version of themselves. But, I don't have a plan. I don't
Right.
have even, I couldn't even plan like what time I was going to eat or something like that, even though I would have a system for certain things. But, when it comes to your kids, it's fluid, right?
Right.
So, like, oh, we're going to have lunch at noon for the ones that are at home.
Right.
But if I'm nursing and it's like 12:15 or something, you get an idea of what you're going to do. So you have these markers, but it was all surrounded with the kids being, the basis of what was going on, and this facade that, oh, everything has to be in place.
Right.
The house has to be in order.
Yeah.
There's no dishes in the sink, all this kind of craziness. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Like I can think of my own life when, you know, while I feel my marriage is breaking down, everyone around me is like, wow, you're such a role model for us, and it's just amazing to always see you together and everything.
Right.
So you realize that, what everyone sees on the outside isn't what you're experiencing on the inside. And
So
so
true.
is what you're experiencing on the inside, of course, it's created by you, experienced by you, and you're the only thing that's the reason for what you feel on the inside.
So true. And it goes to this. I'm glad you brought that up because that happens in my life now, just going through the healing process
Right.
from, like I mentioned before, I had to quit blaming my husband.
Yeah.
I had to quit blaming my kids because
Yeah.
there is that resentment and bitterness
Right.
that took place as a result of that. So it's a healing journey, right?
Mm.
So it looks like when people are saying, oh, you guys just seem like you have it all together. It's kind of like it should be a compliment, but it is kind of like, am I going to tell the truth here, or am I
Right.
going to live a
Yeah.
fantasy? You're
Right.
going through this banter in your head every time
Yeah.
somebody says
Yeah.
something that is supposed to be a compliment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. And you wonder, like, you are going through this in your head as you're in the situation, because you're like, you're living a lie. Like,
Right.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so one of the things that really helped me in making that transition was I was no longer willing to live a lie anymore. See,
Right.
I didn't know who I was because the person that I was creating out of what I thought was protecting myself was really creating my own prison, or whatever you want to call it, because it left me powerless because I had to be at the mercy of whatever everybody else thought was good,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, their expectations,
exactly,
and the fact that you maybe felt that you couldn't meet their expectations was taking you into a depression on some level.
exactly. And they weren't even saying anything. This was something I was
Yeah.
doing to
In
myself.
your
Yeah.
mind.
Hmm.
In your mind.
Hmm.
So how does a couple or a woman, like, I mean, we hear about struggles with families with one or two children. So how does a couple with so many children, how does that couple cope with everything they have to cope with when families with one or two children are having struggles? You were talking about things just flowing with what happens with your children versus what happens with you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I love the way that we interpret a relationship as a couple. And, that's what it's designed to be, you
True.
know, uh, a helpmeet, supporter. The
Yeah.
reality is sometimes it's not that way. And I say that because, we each have different stories that we bring to the relationship.
Right.
You know, I had the story that as a high achiever, so even the foundation might not have been laid out right. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
I
there was some accountability that I was taking on my shoulders, thinking, oh, I'm helping or I'm supporting. But, you know, when you're young and you get married, you don't really know who you are just in the first place. I mean, we got married when I was 21, right
right,
before I turned 22, right? So, um, yeah, so, or 22, getting ready to turn 23. Look, it's crazy.
right,
22, turning 23. Yeah. So, but needless to say, it was young. That's young, right?
right,
And so you don't really know yourself. You
right,
know the idea of what you think marriage is. So
right,
you that's another thing that's factoring into it. So you go on this journey and you're not really talking to anybody. In our case, we didn't have any examples. Now my
right.
mom had gotten remarried, but my mom and dad got a divorce. His mom and dad got a divorce. And a lot of our friends who even went to our wedding, they got a divorce.
Right.
So we didn't even have any kind of role models about this is what a marriage looks like. You know, we're just
Yeah,
and we're having
you're
kids.
just yeah, you're just flowing in your legs, individually and together at the same time. Because
Right.
I always say that even when people are together, they're not really together anyways. They're really on their own. You're always on your own, whether it's with somebody or not somebody, because you're living with yourself more than anyone else.
That is, you know what? I'm writing that down. That is so true. Okay. That's a good word right there. Because that is the reality. And so we kind of have this mindset that we adopt from other people about what things are supposed to be. And a lot of it is related to the illusion and the fantasy
Right,
behind the couple, the married life, and what that
right,
looks like. So, you know, I just give you that background to say that the thing that made us so, what's the word I want to say, close
right.
in our marriage was that we both had the same foundation of trusting God as the center. So
Amazing.
we agreed on certain values
Yeah,
and ideals, which glued us together at a very important time in our relationship. However, you know, there still were things that we built in that marriage that might not have been 100% the way we would have liked it to be, you
right,
know. And so now the challenge comes with addressing some of those things that, you know, like a 13-year period of depression, that's a long time.
it is.
And each of the times that I was hospitalized, I didn't seek hospitalization. My husband sought it for me because of the things that he witnessed and noticed.
Right,
So I was just so oblivious to it that it was going on
right,
and I wasn't even cognizant of it. So
right. So
just so much.
you yourself weren't aware of what was happening to yourself. Oh,
Or the
Lachelle, I
story.
lost.
Yeah, and the story I was telling myself was, I got this. It's under control,
Right,
whatever. And the, you know, the results were showing something else.
right,
So it's that period of, you know, trusting even yourself with your own definition of what is okay, you
right,
know, what is having it together? What is that really looking like? Because I'm thinking I have it together and everybody else is like, okay, something's not right here, you
right.
know?
So
So, mhm.
let's fast forward now to what you were talking about. You have this realization now that you know something's just not right, and I'm the I'm at the center of all this. I am the one who's at the center of all this, not what's happening around me. So at that pivotal point, then what decisions do you make and what happens?
So the main thing with that was I realized that I had a choice.
Yes.
See, when I had the victim mindset, it was like all these things were happening to me.
Right.
as if I just was powerless. I couldn't do anything about it. It was just in the cards for me, so to speak, or,
Right.
it was just my destiny.
Right.
And the minute that I just said, this is not a reflection of who I remember myself being, I remember being happy and being successful and
Right.
setting goals and accomplishing them. This period of time does not reflect the person that I remember being.
Right.
So it was at that point that I was like, I don't even know who I am. You could have asked me what my favorite color was, and I'd be like, is this a
Right.
SAT question or something? Because I just was on autopilot. I was not thinking,
Right.
reflecting. It was
Right.
just like survival mode. And I mean, it was crazy. Survival mode is designed for you to survive for a short amount of time. And I use this example. If you get a flat tire, you have a spare.
Right.
But that spare is only supposed to take you so long before you get a regular tire.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't be driving around with the spare tire doing
Forever.
everything that you normally would do. It's not designed for that, but that's how my life was for 13 years.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. And so, does that mean that we need to pay attention to us in our lives and what our limits are and what it is we can and can't do and what it is. I mean, we can accomplish anything and everything, of course, right? But we also have to realize in the here and now what it is that keeps us in that bubble of happy, I guess is a word.
Right. Well, and I just choose happy. That's my thing. That was the
Okay.
first thing. It was like, I don't care what happens. I don't want to frown. I
Yeah.
want to smile. I want to be excited to get out of bed. That's the kind of stuff I told myself. And
Right.
so I was choosing to be happy. And when you choose that and you decide to take the journey to figure out who you are, who you remember being, because a lot of times with depression, we lose ourselves. We forget
Right.
who we were. That's the problem. There's
Right.
something that's just not quite
Right.
in line. You're out of alignment, right?
Right.
And so getting back to you is the first thing. And when you get back to you, it's recognizing who that person was. So once you recognize it, you get back to you, then you have to be the voice for that person because that person lost their voice. It was buried
Right.
underneath the yeses or, the I don't want to argue. I'm just want to keep the peace and,
Yeah.
I'm going to take it for the team. And the next time I'm going to say something or this is the last time I'm going to do this. These are the things you're telling yourself, but you just keep on doing it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they really didn't mean what they said,
Right.
so, I'm going to give them a pass and, I'm being too emotional and all these different things we tell ourselves, right?
Right.
Well,
And
that just buries your voice.
it's all a matter of perspective too. I mean, there's so many tools out there, spiritual tools, mental tools, and emotional tools that you can use um, to know yourself, right? Because the key in this life is to know yourself, and the more you know yourself, the more you'll know your environment and your surroundings,
Mhm.
and how to live in those surroundings.
So
So
true.
tell me then what kind of tools you used in your life to turn it around for yourself.
Yeah.
And
The
then we
main,
can talk about what tools you bring for everyone else.
the, the greatest tool was my voice. And that has just, I am on fire for speaking and recognizing the ability to help people get delivered from whatever mindset they were having, because I just have the ability to be transparent because I know we all suffer from it. So
Right.
my case is depression, but somebody else, it might be overeating. It
Right.
might be people pleasing. It
Right.
could be not having any boundaries. It
Right.
could be alcoholism,
Right.
smoking, right? We all have some kind of vice. And I look at depression like just like anything else, whether it's self-inflicted or you were a victim of some trauma, it's the same thing. It does something to separate you from who you remember being for
Right.
whatever case that is.
Right. Right.
So we get coping strategies that we cope with that make us further and further distant from ourselves. We close ourselves off. So it's like I was so numb, I just don't even remember crying. Now, during that period of 13 years, I've had kids. I suffered with nursing. You go through the period for a couple weeks, it's uncomfortable to nurse or whatever. I mean, traumatic things, deaths in the family, not a tear
Wow.
because I was numb about certain things because I felt like I didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to be weak. That was my thing.
Right.
I don't have time for
You
weak.
had to be strong for the whole family, and you have a big.
Right.
Right.
And, it was a lot of the responsibility with raising the kids was on my shoulder. So a lot of people are like, oh, you guys are married. It's so good. You've got sons and daughters. They see the father figure. But the reality was my husband was an officer in the military, a pastor, and he worked retail. So weekends, holidays, the kids would be asleep when he would go to work. They would be asleep when he would get home.
Right.
So the issue was, if he's not here, am I going to be like, you wait till your father gets home? No, I had to be the disciplinarian, had to be the tutor to help him with homework, had to be the chauffeur,
Right.
the nurse. If somebody's sick, had to be the,
Right.
assistant who's taking them back and forth
Right.
to the doctor and
Right.
the, food supply for those that have to be breastfed. I mean, just going on, right? And so the issue becomes, really you get attached to some of those things to where because they are important roles,
Right.
you begin to think if you don't do them, who's going to do them? So you don't have time to be weak. So I don't have time to be tired. My kids, they need me for school. They need me for dinner. They need me for this and that. And so it's kind of like, you tell yourself this to make you feel better, but you're worn out,
Yeah.
and they really can function if you just say, hey, I'm not cooking, go in there and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I even struggle with that because I'm like, I'm at home and this is crazy, not thinking that, okay, you don't have a normal amount of kids at home. You don't have a driver, nobody's driving your kids, you don't have carpool, you don't have any of this. You have to stop, wake up the kids from their nap, cart them in the car so you can go pick up the other kids because they were in private school sometimes and there were no buses. All these things that's what I'm saying. You don't really have the bandwidth to really sit down and think, what, this is really crazy.
So,
I am
so
doing all
this
these
thing
things.
where God doesn't give you a burden greater than you can bear. You obviously could bear this because I can see beautiful children in that image that you have behind you that look, they're glowing, man. They're glowing. So you definitely came through, even though you were struggling with yourself. I'm sure if I asked any one of your children, they would say I have the best mom in the world.
Oh, that is so sweet. And I think there is that element of appreciation that they have. But I'm learning, just like a business, and not to compare being a mother to a business, it's a marathon. Okay. You're not going to always get 50 likes, 1,000 likes.
Right,
Everything you post is not going to go viral. Right.
right.
So, that with that mindset when it comes to parenting is, you know, yeah, they get mad at me when I'm telling them they can't do stuff. They're on punishment and all these kind of
Yeah,
things. So, my oldest daughter, it wasn't until she had her child. I was there
right.
with her. She was in grad school in Miami. So I went to stay with her during delivery. And it wasn't until that time that she's like calling her sisters. I don't know about y'all, but you better listen to mom. She knows what she's talking about. I thought she didn't know either, but after this experience, you know what I'm saying? So, but that was 26 years old. The child's 28 now. So
Yeah.
imagine if I just waited, I'm thinking that she's going to have this epiphany when she graduates or whatever. It wasn't until she was 26. So the
Right.
blessing is I have younger kids that validate me if that's what I'm looking for with,
Right.
oh, they want to be around me.
Right.
They're little, they don't have a lot of influences. So everything I say is like, oh, it's like God incarnate, right?
Absolutely.
The high schoolers, they're like headphones tuning me
Yeah.
out. I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So it's good to kind of have that balance.
Yeah.
But um and, it's a highlight reel. We look at the picture, it's a graduation, right?
Right.
That's the reality. So it's
Right.
like everybody knows how to put on a good face for a picture,
That's
for a
true.
recording, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be able to really open the spotlight and say, what are some of the things? Because, I have learned that, I don't want to speak for my kids. I want them to
They
be
have
able
their own voice.
have their own voice. I want it means so much more to me for them to say, Mom, I really would like your advice on this, rather
Right.
than me thinking I need to tell them everything,
Right. Good.
or it has to
Yeah.
be my way. Because I really get impressed when I be quiet and they figure stuff out and then they go tell each other. One of them is like, hey, you know what? I think you need to do it this way. And I'm like, hey, that's some good advice. I don't even know if I would have came up with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. There's a book by Khalil Gibran called The Prophet, and in it there's a section on children, and it talks about how you are not your children, and that they have their own lives to live, right? And so you live your life and be there for them in their life while they live theirs. Basically, is the gist of it.
mhm, so true. And the profound thing is that it doesn't matter what you say anyway. What matters is how you live.
Right.
Because the most powerful part of our brain is the one that takes action, and it's nonverbal. So you could say all the words you want in the world, but if you want somebody to act on what you say, you have to be the example and they imitate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to practice what you preach too,
Hmm.
whatever it
Hmm.
is, because they'll know it's a lie if you don't, right?
So true. And I mean, and that's the problem that a lot of people have is they see what goes on behind closed doors, but then they have this conflict between what they tell the world or show to the world.
Right.
And so that
Yeah.
was my thing, was hiding behind these masks. My husband was an officer, so then it's like, you're a leadership in the military, you have to do things just so that's a mask. Then it
Right.
was like, in the church as a first lady, that's a mask. Then it's like, having it all together, PTA, with class mom, that's a mask. Any
Right.
kind of extracurricular
Right.
activities, being the snack mom, that's a mask. And I was
Right.
like, you know what? I am tired of all these masks. I'm done with that. And now, I want to be the same person everywhere I go. I don't want to feel like I have to put on a different uniform or have a
Right.
different way to talk.
Right.
So
Right.
that is really what really changed everything for me, was to realize that I'm the same person wherever you find me,
Right.
on somebody else's podcast. If you
Yeah.
see me in the grocery store, you call me on the phone, and that has been so liberating.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mhm.
So tell us now about how Lachelle goes from depression, realizing she's in a depression, realizing she needs to get out of this and move forward with her life, just the same way she was, because she's still Lachelle. Tell us how she now becomes someone who wants to write a book and tell her story and what importance that had to her.
I think the main thing is one is the awareness, that depression really can impact so many people, men and women.
Right.
Even one of the things I witnessed during this pandemic was my children, them experiencing it during this time. And I really want to raise awareness about it because so many people are on medication that really, I believe, could be avoided if we had the courage to speak up and tell the truth about some things,
Right.
and like even just the issue of dealing with couples in a marriage.
Right.
Yeah, you start off and, it's this kumbaya honeymoon period, whatever, but, life throws you some punches. And
Mhm.
I think if we're realistic with some of these conversations that we have, we could avoid divorce, we can avoid domestic violence,
Right.
for it even getting that far because we will be able to tell the truth. The problem is that we want to live a lie and we want all the things a lie will have for us. It's just like, trying to take a shortcut.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the journey. You want all the
Yeah.
rewards for a race you didn't run in.
Right.
That's really what the gist of it is. And it's
Right.
like,
That's amazing. That's how you say that. Yeah.
mhm, you want all the accolades, but you just don't want to do the work. And
Right.
the work can be beneficial if you know. So, for example, like
Well,
if you're running.
the work is the true gift, right? The work is a true
Exactly.
gift to yourself. Because like you say, um, this living a lie thing, I mean, even before you get to the point of the couple and the marriage and all that, you're sometimes are going into that living a lie because you don't necessarily want to be there, but you're there because of your societal um, image that's formed out there that you need to live in or whatever. But maybe it's not for you, and it's okay if it's not for you, and maybe
So
you
true.
just need to just hang in there and keep living in your happiness, even if it doesn't mean being in a marriage
So
or
true.
a family or children or whatever.
So true. And, I think one of the things that happens is, we try to fit into a mold. We begin to see that we're not fitting into it. And we can either change so we can fit into it. So I ask people, if you had something going on with your arm, it had got injured and everything, you wouldn't get to this point to say, "Ah, this arm, I'm so tired of it. I'm just going to cut
Right.
it off and continue living my life without the arm."
Right.
And so this is kind of what happens when we have these issues that come up in our past.
Yeah.
We just want to kind of close it off. You get the term skeletons in your closet because people have a dark side. And really, if you look at it, it's really not that it's dark. It was dark because of the side you were looking at, right? So if you look at an elephant and I'm in the back of the elephant, I'm like, well, this animal big, it just has a small tail. Or,
Yeah.
it has, I'm just describing it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, no, the thing I see is really big and
Yeah.
protruding and
Yeah.
doing all this stuff, and we're talking about the same animal.
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
looking at it from a different perspective.
Absolutely. That's a Sufi story, and it's
Hmm.
brilliant.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So we
Um,
got to get to the point to where we recognize that, is it really dark? And that's another thing. People talk about depression, it's taboo, we're not gonna, mental illness, it's all lumped into the same category. But,
right.
there are some things that we can look at depression and find out it's being stuck in the past, right? That's what
Right.
they say, is that, you cannot move beyond something that happened. And, I liken it to the fact that if you rode a bike when you were 7 and you fell off the bike and broke your leg, you had to have a cast. You
Right.
wouldn't live your whole life like you had a cast on it anymore after you get the cast taken off.
Right. Right.
But this is what we do. We walk around crippled,
Right.
thinking that nobody else sees this, you know.
Right.
And this is what we're doing to ourselves. And they're like, well, what's wrong with you? Well, when I was 7, I broke my leg. So now I've got a limp. And, it's crazy, right?
Right.
This is just because you physically don't see it. This is
Right.
the same thing that happens mentally, right? We're 7 years old, we're still carrying this around. And so, some of my clients, like I've told them, I said, look, let's say you were victimized for whatever reason, whatever that victimization was when you were 7,
Right.
go to the playground and look at a 7-year-old,
Right.
right? See what kind of power they have, how naive, influential, whatever the case is, that you are able to sway them because of their lack of knowledge, right?
Right.
So just observe that. Now, you may realize, you know what, I was victimized. Okay, you were
Yeah.
victimized at 7. However, you're continuing to victimize yourself because you are not moving forward from that.
Right.
See, if you
Right.
just admit,
It's only hurting you. It's not hurting whoever victimized you. It's not hurting whatever that situation was. It's hurting you because it's affecting your life, your state of mind, your state of happiness. Absolutely.
exactly. So then when you have that mindset, and let's say you were that child who made up stories, or you turned to drugs or whatever, you realize that that was a coping strategy because you could not get away from that inner turmoil that you were having.
Right.
So then, as an adult, you now have that wisdom and you don't have to live that life anymore. So you
Right.
can really and people are like, man, I smoked cigarettes for 40 years. Well, if you know that that was a coping strategy
Yeah.
for a deeper problem, that problem, you've already dealt with that. So why do you need the cigarettes? They're
Right.
not serving you. Let them go. You see what I'm saying? You can
Yeah.
have
Absolutely.
those kind of
Conversation.
breakthroughs because
Yeah.
you realize it was a crutch that you can just put down and let go.
I lost you for a second there, but it's
Okay.
okay. Um,
Uh,
so well, that's just just amazing advice. Tell us about this book now.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a global project.
Okay.
Um, it's 20 authors total. So
Right.
my chapter is My Life Mask Free, and I talk about how I removed the mask dealing
Right.
with depression.
Right.
And it's inspirational stories of women all over the world. I'm the only one from the United States, and we've come together just to inspire others during
Right.
the time with the global pandemic and giving them hope and inspiration.
Right.
The proceeds of the book go to entrepreneurship for women in Morocco. And then we
Amazing.
also want to impact the lives of 1 million women by the year 2030.
Woohoo!
Mhm.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we certainly pray for your successes in that, and hope you fulfill your goal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited. Big goals excite me because I realize, you can't do it by yourself. You're not an
No.
island.
Yeah.
And, coming from a high achievement background, you're raised to, suck it up, not have excuses, but there is a limit to what you can accomplish. So if you're responsible for you and what you can do, I mean, that's understandable. But once you get into the dynamics of a team, a family, you realize so many things that are out of your control. And so,
Right.
during that period of taking accountability, I really just prayed about it. And I had an epiphany from the Lord that said, you believe that Jesus saved the world, right? And you believe that he did this great thing for you and for all mankind.
Mhm.
So he had 12 disciples. So what makes you think you can do it by yourself? So that really humbled me. I'm
Absolutely.
like, so I
Absolutely.
really got on a different page after that. So now I'm all about collaboration. So this book is just really a godsend and a blessing for me because it really fulfills a goal for me to be able to have something to inspire other people worldwide. And, I was able to let go of the ego of having to have a book with just my name on it,
Right,
because if it was all about me, I'm telling you, that book would still be in this computer.
right.
Okay. But when you're able to, not have to
Work with
seek
others.
credit,
Yeah,
get on the team goal of making a difference, I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing what can transpire from that.
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. I'm excited to read it actually, and
Oh.
definitely read your part of it.
Mhm.
Um, I see you've your life path has led you to um, bringing your experiences and knowledge of your life to others now, and you help others now, right?
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about what you do now, and how we can find you, and what it is that we would find you for.
Yes. So, I have a podcast, and I really love the podcast to be able to, one, help educate people about how much we have in common. I
Right,
have guests, all walks of life, different entrepreneurship careers and industries. And really, the premise of the show is to show how much we have in common. And
right,
I want to be able to give hope to people, especially during this time of so much
right,
uncertainty,
right,
and highlight, that a lot of people have a trepidation about being on video. So
right,
if you're doing it with a friend or somebody you feel comfortable with, all have a zone of genius that when we're willing
yeah,
to get in a place where we feel safe, we can thrive. We can, really shine and be the best version of ourselves. So that's really kind of like the underlying reason. I don't really tell a lot of my guests, but that's really what the focus is for that.
right,
And I do several videos, master classes that I offer through different platforms, usually Facebook, but I do recordings for YouTube. I have a YouTube channel
right,
because the first thing is really educating people. A lot of people, when they're in business, they talk about drip campaigns and things that you do for your clients. You just kind of love on them a little bit here and there, before they convert to a sale. And that's kind of like what you have to do when you're dealing with hard topics that people have always kind of been in denial about or
right,
shunned or don't understand and make judgments about. You kind of have to really educate them. You have to get them to trust you in a way that you can say some profound things
right,
and it has an impact. Just like we were talking, like, we tell ourselves lies. You know, we're sitting here lying because somebody on the outside is saying, "Oh, you just look happily married." But inside, we're like, we just got done fighting, or we're arguing, or we can't get past this, whatever.
right,
We're trying to figure that out,
right,
but, we're not saying anything. Right.
right,
So, for me, the ability to be able to do that and have fun doing that has opened up my eyes and the eyes of so many people that follow me because, it's about being authentic and really having, you can't get treatment for a wound if you don't really know where the wound is or what the real
right,
problem is,
right,
you know, or the medicine can't get to it, right? So you have
right.
to be willing to be real to, what are the symptoms? Where is the pain? Otherwise you could say, "Oh, I broke my arm," but it's the right arm. You're over here holding the left one and you got the cast on the wrong arm. You see what I'm saying? So we
Absolutely.
have to be in a situation of recognizing that. And so I do have programs. I have one program that's related to my book that I call the Fresh Start, which kind of covers the mindset that I had to transform to when I initially just said, hey, enough is enough with this cycle of being depressed and hospitalization. And so that's the basis of that. I'm really trying to focus more on the speaking, the having coaching on demand. That's another thing that I want to do this year because, I just want to be that coach in your pocket that you can, call on and get insight and have materials readily available because I feel like in the coaching realm, there's so much pressure for delivering results monetarily that we don't
Right.
have lasting impact, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a lot of temporary fixes,
Right.
and people want immediate results. And so it's kind of um, put this pressure on coaches in that industry to deliver something temporary. But
Right.
I'm all about educating them and saying, hey, I'm not the coach for you. If you want to think that you're going to be making six figures, next week, and you just pay me X amount of dollars, I'm not that coach because
Right.
I
Yeah.
want to do a work that's going to last. I don't want to just
Yeah.
get the money and that's it. So it's a process. I'm navigating through that. And there's
Right.
different things that I implement, usually in small doses. So,
Right.
if I have a group for something, it's usually 12 and under, and I get 12 from 12 disciples.
Right.
And,
Aw.
I'm about seeing a thing through, finding out, is this working? Why not? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Add. And that has allowed me the flexibility to have such an impact and do different things that make an impression. I am able to be at speaking events. I am able to be an author. I'm
Right.
able to have a podcast and,
Right.
a lot of the other things I do because I have that mindset.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mhm.
Well, I'm really excited to have been interviewing you. I'm really excited to understand better how this supermom's life was and where she's at now. Congratulations, first of all.
Oh, thank you so much. It's
Uh,
definitely a team effort, okay? It's
yeah.
the
You-
support of people like yourself and having these dialogues. You can't have these conversations with everybody even when people come to you and they're like, "Oh, I really want you to coach me." And it's like certain things, it's like what you know.
Yeah.
There's certain keywords that people use, and you can tell if they're really ready for the journey. And it's like, you know what? Let me give you this video, or let
Yeah.
me introduce you to somebody else, in a nice way. They don't really even have to know, but you
Right.
just kind of have those things to where it's like, I'm just not the person for you, you know.
Right.
And so,
And
I mean, I think
good
that's
to know
another thing
that
that.
too. And it's good to know that too. It's good to know and value yourself enough to know that you're not the right person for someone. And
Mhm.
and the other thing is everyone needs to also realize that we all need someone to see what we don't see because
Absolutely.
there'll always be that, you think something, you feel something, but there'll be somebody else will be able to point out to you something, and it'll take you leaps into life because of that one insight that you had that you didn't see.
So true. And I think that's a good point that you bring up because with that, every coaching opportunity is unique, right?
Absolutely.
I don't care if you have a program,
Yeah.
everybody's answers to the questions are different.
Right.
So if you're in a situation to where you're trying to convince a client of your value, you're not able to see what they don't see and have an impact because you're so busy dealing with the pain or whatever, and they're not moving forward. You're not going to move
Right.
forward because that's where they are right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
So when you're able to be in a situation where both of you have a mindset to want to come together and learn,
Yeah.
because I'm the coach that I'll tell you, look, I don't know everything, but
Absolutely.
I enjoy creating organic masterpieces with each of my clients. And by that, I mean having a conversation. I had a conversation with a new client this week, and she had this whole idea about her business and how she saw that business um, working in the past, that had always worked, right? So it was with event planning.
Right.
And she's like prepping, getting ready to move forward when everything opens up, so to speak.
Right.
And I thought, well, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? You know?
Right.
So she told me it's about building camaraderie and things like
Right.
this with the staff. And I thought, well, why don't you think about how you can accomplish that now? Why do you
Right.
have to wait till when things open up?
Right.
There's creative ways that you can solve that problem
Right.
now, and you don't have a lot of competition, maybe.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
And when you go live, you won't have that problem anymore.
Exactly, because you've already created, you're building your
Yeah,
empire while everybody else is sleeping.
absolutely.
So,
And there's a power in that. I mean, this time that everyone's in, there's so many blessings to it, even though it
yeah.
looks like, it's horrendous and horrifying and
Mhm.
all that. There's so many blessings in it. And we all need to learn to realize the blessings in the moment, whatever that moment is. And the more and more we look for the love in things, the more you will help yourself as well as anyone around you and your environment and your humanity and world.
So true. And, I think even along with that, so many people get caught into the deaths that are occurring. And, it is a painful thing to see the amount of lives that are lost. But,
Right.
I come from a spiritual background, and,
Same.
there's nothing hidden with God. He
No.
tells you, when you look in that word, it says there's a time to be born, there's a time to die.
Right.
So even though it is magnified so we may feel, there's nothing new about people dying,
No.
because we all have an expiration date.
Right.
I think the lie that we tell ourselves is that, oh, if I eat right now, I'm not minimizing healthy eating and all these kind of things. But what I'm saying is there's a date that we're going to check out. And yeah, we can have a healthy life. It could be smooth sailing, which I don't know where that is because life is full of ups and downs, twists and turns,
Absolutely.
right? But we're telling ourselves this lie that, you know what, if I do all these things, I have the power to extend my existence. And really, the reality comes where people have a hard time letting go because they don't realize it's not in your power.
Right.
See, you're trying to control a variable that you really don't have control over, you know? So the minute we just get on that plan of saying, okay, I'm going to be born, I'm going to die. So that's already off the table. So
Right.
now what am I going to do in between those two days?
Right. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. And the same for whoever's in our immediate love zone, if I may call it that, right? And we're all in the same boat. We all have the same principles that govern our existence.
Yeah. And so, it's so true. Even like we say, tomorrow's not promised. Um, I really you just never know when somebody is going to be gone, but you may be the person gone. See,
Right.
we identify with ourselves being the hero. So
Right.
when we talk about that, it's like, man, my kids may, we're still looking outward to everybody else
Right.
leaving, but we don't think about it might be you that's leaving.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we got to
Yeah.
get past this fantasy island thinking, or,
Right.
immortality mindset, and
Right.
realize that, life is short. based on that not being part of your control. You can't control when you're leaving.
Right. Right.
So you only can control how you live while you're here.
Yeah, and one of the teachings is you live your material life like you're going to live forever, and your spiritual life like you're going to die tomorrow. So you're always spiritually content,
Right.
and you're always striving for the best in your material life.
So true.
Yeah.
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 So
Well, thank you, Lachelle. Thank you for all the insights. Thank you for meeting with us, and thank you for sharing. And I look forward to doing this again. Um,
absolutely. And I'd love for you to join me on my podcast.
Absolutely, we will do that. Absolutely, we will. And so, before I go, let me just ask you if there's anything you want to share with the audience that maybe I've forgotten, or maybe I didn't even know to ask you this question, or maybe there's just some insight you want to share with everyone before we part. And
Abs-
we can close with that.
Absolutely. I would just tell everybody that to have confidence in you, in your own inner voice. As a mom, I have been just pushed and pulled and turned upside down during this 2020 pandemic. And the mindset that I've had to have with being able to press on, with having a career, managing 8 kids, remote learning, and a list of another dozen things that I've had to manage. It's about really knowing who you are, knowing where you need help, being able to speak up and ask for help, and giving yourself some grace and lowering some of these expectations, and starting community based on what it is that you feel like you're lacking.
Right,
You can do a post and say, hey, what moms are having a problem eating during the day when you're trying to do business and your kids are homeschooling? Do you have some quick meals that I can have available, or things that my kids could make?
right,
So that it kind of lightens that load. When you begin to admit some of the problems that you're having, people will rise up, because we all are problem solvers. We
right.
just don't get a chance to exercise that side of us a lot because we're so busy trying to act like we don't have any problems. And so it's like, this
Yeah,
is why we have a problem in our business, because
right.
we don't know what problem we solve, because we don't want to feel like we want to be vulnerable about admitting the things that we don't know.
Well, problems aren't
And
necessarily negative either. I mean, everything's a problem. The fact that the internet isn't working right now is a problem.
so true. You see what I'm saying? But we don't get on the other side of the creativity. When you're
Right,
a problem solver, you open yourself up to so many different collaborations and new
absolutely.
people and different conversations and places that you never would have been if you weren't willing to be curious and explore that and admit what you didn't know. So life can be a lot richer when you're willing to be a little vulnerable. And I know it's a process, start off small where it's like, really owning. Yeah, I've had like 3 or 4 calls this week with my kids not being in class. So they're doing remote learning. We're all in the same area, same house. My husband's at work. He's calling me because a principal or a teacher is calling him because one of the kids is not where they're supposed to be. And we're all in the same house. So I'm willing to admit that, though. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
times where it's like, oh gosh, I don't want people knowing. It's like, look, and I'll tell the teachers if they call, hey, I have 8 of them. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm trying to make myself available to what they need, but you can't enable them either. I had one of my sons, he was on break. He's watching a movie. I said, look, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm on break. I said, you know what? Hey, this is your life. I've already been in the 8th grade. Now, if you want to go to high school, you better get it together because I'm not going to advocate for you because I'm
Right,
watching what you're doing. You need to be focused. But
right.
anyway, so I'm saying we got to have those moments of being vulnerable to people that we can trust. Now, you can't
Oh,
tell everybody everything,
no.
right? Because, I feel I can, because I'm strong enough to understand that, do I even know who I'm talking to? Does what their opinion about me matter? Right?
Right.
Once you figure out that there are things that people are going to say, they're going to make judgments only based off what I tell them. Because
Right.
some people really don't dig deeper. They'll argue with you about a comment that you said, but they don't know anything about who you are as a person to really figure out, oh, she might have just said that. They don't give you the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. So
Right.
when you know who you are, you know where you stand on things, your values, and all these things. I can go on for hours, but I guess I
Yeah.
want to summarize it and say, be you. The more that you're you, you will attract your tribe to you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. So I'll leave it at that.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Lachelle. Thank you. Thank you for this honor. And we'll have you back. We'll have you back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. And this has really been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed myself. And anything I
As
can
well,
do to support you, please let me know.
as well, as well. Thank you.